Welcome to Education Forum. I'm Herman Badillo, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the City University. The improvement of education affects all New Yorkers. This program will focus on the key educational issues and challenges before us all. My guest today is Ned Regan, who is the new president of Baruch College, approved by the Board of Trustees at the last meeting, and he will be taking office on July 15th. Mr. Regan is a graduate of Hobart College in New York, and he got a law degree from the State University of New York in Buffalo. He has been the city councilman for many years in Buffalo, and he was Erie County executive, and for 14 years he was the state controller of the state of New York. And in that capacity, he administered a pension fund of $60 billion. He managed and supervised all of the accounts of the city and the state. So he brings a wealth of administrative and business experience to Baruch College. Ned, I welcome you as the new president, and want to ask you, because you have such a distinguished career and have been an outstanding public official, why did you want to be president of Baruch College after all of this?
Well, first let me thank you as chairman for your support in voting me in. It was a very competitive process. There were a number of superb candidates, and I felt very lucky, I think it was 3 weeks ago or so, to get the news and then appear and get the vote, which I'm thrilled about, so I thank you and the other trustees. Well, in addition to government, I'd spent a lot of time in the academic field. I can't bill myself as an academic, but I have written a lot, and I've taught, and I've served on university and college boards. I've got a book about to be published by NASDAQ. I've just finished the Levy Institute, where I'm headquartered, is just done a monograph. And so I've spent, and I'm currently, my main focus is at an academic institution, the Jerome Levy Economic Institute of Bard College. So I've always wanted to do this, and all of a sudden the notion of Baruch came up, and I was involved in the CUNY system going back a little bit when there were a lot of troubles trying to help, as so many good citizens did, especially citizen number one, and that is you. Well,
we had a lot of problems in the 70s when we were trying to make sure that we got the support we needed from Congress for the City University.
That's right, and you had the problems and move right through, cut budgets, government taking a negative view of
increased tuition.
Yeah, and you had to increase tuition, but the government generally, the public generally, taking a negative view of where how their tax dollars were being spent in terms of higher education. I think the public generally has moved beyond that, and especially in the last year or so, under your leadership and Matt Goldstein's leadership, in terms of its support for Baruch, whether the state legislature and the governor kind of get themselves aligned with how I think the public feels about the strong education mission of both Baruch and CUNY. I don't know.
Last year, people were telling me that I should not push for higher standards, that I should push instead for getting more money from the legislator. But I said, and you'll appreciate this because you know how the legislature works, that the wiser course to follow was to push for the higher standards, because if that happened, then the money would follow.
Of course, absolutely.
And this is what exactly has happened this year.
There is no question about that, that when the assemblymen and senators and the governor's people start hearing from constituents that they're trying to get their kid in CUNY, that kind of thing, and if people say they want to go or they've had a great educational experience, that changes the mindset, and your course of action is correct.
Well, I'm a graduate of Baruch. Of course, when I graduated, it wasn't a separate college. It was a part of the city college. But the fact that I graduated with a Bachelor of Business Administration from Baruch majoring in accounting and economics meant that I could go work for any CPA firm
of course.
because the standards were recognized as being so high. So I wanted you to be president because I want you to continue that tradition at Baruch College.
No question that, again, you and Matt, of course, Goldstein, the current chancellor of CUNY, was its president, took it over at a very difficult time in the early 90s, and then built it up, and then the two of you teamed up at CUNY, and then now I come in and stand in Matt's shoes to try to keep this, this great momentum going. And I'm very heavily associated with the accounting industry in this country and internationally. And I think that the Baruch, from everything I've heard since the announcement has been out, Baruch is thought of as right up there in terms of its accounting with the top 5 in the country.
Well, that's what I would like to see. I'd like to have Baruch become, in effect, the New York equivalent of the Harvard School of Business.
Well, in accounting, it already is.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about some of the other, in every capacity, I'm not sure yet, but it will be. We're on a drive, we'll launch a drive. I say we, I'm not there officially yet, but have been deeply involved, to raise enough money to put the Zicklin Business School, which is basically where you graduated from, the Zicklin Business School, right in the top 25. That's going to be a drive that'll be announced, and there'll be a lot of major fundraising efforts, and I'm already involved in that.
Well, now you have new buildings going up too.
Oh,
magnificent
fabulous.
building.
When the ribbon is cut on that building in 15, 16 months, it will be an event that'll be all over the television and front pages of the papers. The New York Times has already done 2 articles on its architectural magnificence and how architecturally it meshes with the educational mission of Baruch. It's fabulous building, fabulous.
Well, the point is that it will provide many more opportunities because you'll have a larger capacity to our student body.
Well, we think it's already under your goal. Let me back up a bit, of increasing standards. More people are applying. Not less, more are applying, because they hear that they are going to go to a school where they're going to learn from their students and it won't be held back. So the people that look at the capacity say, that building's already filled up. And believe it or not, one of the vice president, I think, for administration has already started to talk to me about trying to find new capacity because of the energy now being created at Baruch.
Well, the problem, of course, is that you don't have a campus there, and it's very difficult to find space because you're basically located on 23rd Street and Lexington Avenue in Manhattan, and then you've been expanding down south and up, but it's very difficult to find space. You almost have to be a real estate developer to acquire a piece of land.
Well, we have a wonderful real estate school, the Newman Institute, that is going to train people to do just that. But there is no question we have to find space, and here comes the problem. The problem is the benefit. There's always a flip side to these things. In the Park Avenue South area, that's between, let's say, Grand Central and Union Square, and we're in that community, is growing. It's becoming a new area for people to locate their offices and restaurants and movie theaters. The Murray Hill down to Union Square area where Baruch is the next source of office building and apartment. There's hotels now being built right in the area. So it's all of a sudden blossoming, and Baruch's going to blossom right with it.
Yeah, and you also have new facilities. The Subaknet Center, where you have new computers, is going to provide, in fact, it almost has like a stock exchange room.
Oh, it is. It is. There isn't anything like it in the city. People that want to go to Wall Street and sit in front of a computer and trade can learn it all right there. There's only 4 or 5 like it in the whole country. A regular trading floor, real time. Now they can't make side bets, you know, but they can learn. And it's fabulous. It's been written up. In fact, the acting president Sid Lertzman, who's done a marvelous job in between Matt and now, and he was the real energy behind the Subotnick Center. He was on CNBC TV the day it opened a couple of weeks ago, and people all across the country saw, because it's so unique and so good.
I just want to point out that none of these things would have been possible within the regular budget of the City University. It's just that we've been lucky in having graduates such as Mr. Subotnick, who have come back to contribute, and Mr. Sicklin. And it's that kind of resource which I think needs to be tapped so that we can build up an endowment at Baruch College and the City University to create all of these modern facilities.
You make a good point. The taxpayer and tuition dollars are devoted to the standard, the core curriculum, and the new buildings, and all of that, building it up. But the fundraising is now bringing in, as you've just suggested, distinguished chairs, professors, the Subotnick Center, the Zicklin School, the Bert Wasserman donated along with Subotnick to create the trading floor, so that these people, and I wish I could name them all, but they've just done a fabulous job. Bill Newman, we've mentioned, of donating money back to Baruch, and it's all gone straight to improve the educational mission.
And one of the things I'd like to work on is having a more extensive fundraising operation, because other universities, Harvard, Columbia, and NYU, do this on a consistent basis. We always felt that because we were a public university, we didn't have to do it, but I think
we're going to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to do it. There's a lot of people that have graduated from Baruch. Well, you've devoted your life to public service, so you didn't accumulate necessarily a sizable fortune, but there's plenty of people that graduated from Baruch who have, because they got a fabulous education, and because they're very smart individuals, have done very well. And we suspect they would like to support Baruch and keep the same mission going. And what's the mission? The mission is to take the first and second generation students of the 5 boroughs and in low or moderate income environment, and give them a career ladder into the city's economy and the culture of the city. That's what Baruch does, what it did, and what it does now, and we want it to do it even better. This is the place you go if you are looking onward and upward and can't afford the private schools. Here is Baruch.
Yes, after all, it was the avenue of opportunity for me, and we want to keep it as the avenue of opportunity for this generation.
That's the goal.
And future generations.
That's the goal.
We'll be back after these important announcements.
I joined the Peace Corps because it gave me an opportunity to do something worthwhile. We were providing clean water, which to everyone there is health, and we try to do the same thing here by just providing health care. Compassion, perspective, a sense of adventure. Those 3 things help me get through the day and make me a better doc. I'd recommend the Peace Corps to anyone that was thinking about any job. It'll help them excel and be better at whatever they do. You learn the value of service. You're going to want to be in a position to give service back.
Peace Corps volunteers, changing the world, changing America.
We're back today with Ned Regan, the new president of Baruch College. We've been talking about the business school, but of course Baruch College is a college, and it encompasses much more than the courses in business. We want to tell us about some of the other things that you offer.
Well, arts and sciences. You want to be a Baruch Business School, Zicklin School graduate, 50% of the coursework has to be in the liberal arts and history and economics and business law. You can just go on and on and on, and it's marvelous. It's an enormously strong faculty, distinguished members, and you really get a good liberal arts education, which is essential. So 50% of the courses there for the business graduate is in arts and sciences, for a very good reason. Business conditions are going to change, and unless the student has the ability to think through and analyze in a historical and a cultural perspective, it's going to be more difficult 5 and 10 years from now. It would be maybe not impossible, but very difficult 5 or 10 years from now as new technology and new ways of doing business come in, and there's no perspective. If all the student has learned is just how to do business, well, when business is no longer done the way they learned, but is done in a slightly different way, that rich broad education background will play into that and move them right through the process.
Well, that was the reason that I became a student at Baruch, because when I went to City College, I was told I could be anything I wanted to, but I said I have to make a living when I graduate, because I had to bring money into the family. So they told me that there were 3 things that I could take. One was teaching, and I felt that would be too limited. Second one was engineering. And the engineering school at that time, it was practically all physics, chemistry, and drafting. And then the third one was accounting. And I looked at the curriculum, I found that I could take 2 years of liberal arts and then specialize in accounting and economics. And that made the difference, because you feel you need that combination. So this is what is important about having that. And without the background in liberal arts, just being a machine that knows how to handle computers and accounting is not enough.
No, wouldn't work. And as a matter of fact, of course, then there are degrees, undergraduate and graduate degrees in the various disciplines in the liberal arts if people want to stay there. Now, most of the degrees that come out of Baruch, of course, are business degrees, but you can get, you certainly can specialize and concentrate in the arts. And they're doing fine. They're doing just fine there.
Now you have a new school that has been just opened, which has a very unusual twist, and that's the School of Public Affairs. Tell us about that school.
Well, that's new, and of course it's something that we both know something about, public affairs or public administration, and it's a great addition. It's under a new dean, Stan Altman, who's a very energetic, very creative fellow, and they've gathered themselves a great faculty. And the broad goal here is to create for New York City an institution that can support the various businesses and government endeavors and initiatives, and even create some for them in the 5 boroughs. No school really plays that role. It's kind of like a parallel would be the JFK School in Cambridge that supports government and does an intellectual side of the state and local government in the Boston and the metropolitan Boston community, and does a fine job there. So that's Stan Altman's vision, and certainly I'm thrilled to be associated with that particular vision, and I know you are very involved too.
Well, because you have an immediate problem that the school is addressing, and that is that because of term limits in New York City, the members of the council, for the most part, cannot run again, and borough presidents, 4 out of the 5 borough presidents can run again. The mayor, the controller, and the public advocate can run. So that one of the projects that the school is working on is showing people how to be ready for public office. And you and I know that that's not easy.
That's right. I can remember my first days in the Buffalo City Council. It was a learning experience, and fortunately I had, you know, as friends and colleagues, and then later friends, people that had been there sometimes for only 2 years and sometimes for 22 years. So that the learning experience, I got up to speed very fast. Then I could sift and sort through the advice I was getting as to the good and the mediocre, and sometimes the just plain bad. But at least I had that opportunity. When people come into the New York City Council, there's everything, as you've just said, the mayor, everybody is new. Right. City Council is new. And who's going to handle this? Who's going to create this transition? As you've just said, Herman, the Baruch School of Public Affairs. By its training, mission, its education, bringing these people in, starting debates, having people come in like yourself and say, this is how it goes, this is the difference, and give people a sense of home, a sense of comfort as they go in, first of all, to a campaign. Now, we can't get involved.
But not involved in the campaign. choosing political parties. But as you know, and as we found out in the presidential campaign, New York State has one of the most difficult election laws. So to get on the ballot, you have to be an expert in election law.
I wonder who writes those election laws. Ah, incumbents. So they don't want challengers, eh? Well, that's the way it works in New York State, and that's very unfortunate. And again, lucky enough, Stan Altman and you and the people at Baruch have started this initiative. We can't certainly provide people who want to run in primaries, lawyers, to figure out how to get on the ballot, but the public education about the Byzantine New York law will, if we can educate them, that will help and democratize a little bit the whole process.
Yeah, and then the training is very important, because if we're going to have 90% of the city council made up of new people, freshmen and women, who don't have a background, in the meantime, the process of government goes on, as you know.
Of course.
So there is no time for a learning curve. It's not the kind of thing where you blend in new people along with the other ones. So all the more reason why we really have to develop that. And this will be a very important new school, and people should know that we have it at Baruch College.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it. And people have got to. When I first heard it, I first heard about it, by the way, and I joined the committee long before I got in the search, and I've been a member of the committee for 9 months. He said to me, so wait a minute, public service is public service. Folks should be able to go into the city council, and it's a democratic process. They represent constituents. What's the training for? Then I had to think back, well, wait a minute.
You went through it.
Yeah, all of this is true, that it's a citizen forum. It's a forum for citizens. And you don't have to have a degree to run for office. You don't have to have anything to run for office. You got to have a lot of energy and an interest in helping your constituents in your local community. But that isn't enough. That just isn't enough. You've got to know the committee structure. You've got to know when a mayor can veto and when a mayor cannot, what the budget process is. And so if you don't get this training, this great citizen contribution, this love of public service will be thwarted, at least for a couple of years. And that's what the Public Affairs Committee, which we're both part of, does. It leapfrogs over that infrastructure and teaches people about it and gets them.
And it should be available not just to people who want to run for office, but people who want to help other people to run for office.
Of course, no question about that.
Because especially when I started in politics in East Harlem, the big problem was that nobody knew anything about running for office, and that's why in many of the poor areas, you don't get too many candidates running for public office, because they really don't know, they don't have the resources, they don't have the lawyers who will advise them, and therefore when they think of running for public office, they think of it as something that's only for the people who are wealthy, and therefore we don't get the kind of person that we should get in areas like the South Bronx and East Harlem.
So let me ask you this question. The elections, we do the training for the new people. The elections come up, they're elected, and we still kind of training them. So are you suggesting that the School for Public Affairs should keep this committee going and should be out in the community teaching people what the political process is all about, even after we've done our job in terms of term limits, and keep going?
That's right, because there's nobody doing this. To give you one very direct example, when I decided to go into politics, because I've been trying criminal cases, mostly pro bono, and I felt that case by case, you're not going to solve any problem. So decided to go into politics. I went to see some district leaders in the area where I lived, in the west side of Manhattan. And I said, I'm a young lawyer and CPA, and I'm a good debater. I was in the moot court team on the law review, and I would like to join the club to get a lot of Puerto Ricans, Hispanics, and blacks registered. So I gave them my card and said, I'd like to join the club. They said, well, don't join yet. We are going to have a big affair next month. So I gave them the card, and they said they would invite me. I'm still waiting for the invitation.
Of course. Of course.
The last thing they wanted was someone who
course.
was aggressive and knew what to do.
Right.
So in the regular organizations of all parties, it was not the partisan thing, don't encourage people to come in, and that's why you need a nonpartisan institution that will provide the service.
Well, I wonder what the incumbents are going to think when they tune in and listen to you say that.
Listen, competition is good for everybody.
Of course it is. It's the best thing for democracy. Not only to train the people that get in there, but then we can remind them that right behind them are coming other trained people right from the grassroots, and if they do a good job, there's not a problem. But there is going to be in the 5 boroughs people being trained to enter the political process. Good for you.
Well, listen, you are coming into a new challenge, and I know that you will do as well as you have in your previous career in
Listen, I'm
government and public
fascinated.
service.
What a combination. You could think of the institutions that contribute to the economic and civic and cultural life in this town. And way at the top has to be CUNY.
Right.
I mean, if it is maybe number 1, number 2 that really make this massive contribution. And then, of course, within CUNY comes the flagship, if I can say so, which is Baruch contributing. And that's, to be part of that is a wonderful experience. And again, I thank you for your support.
Thank you for being with us today. You can reach us by email at our website, www.cunytv.cuny.edu, or write to us at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016. We look forward to hearing from you.